Most people remember British comedian Benny Hill for his slapstick humor that could make even the most serious viewer laugh. His unique comedic style and on-screen presence captured audiences around the world. However, as societal views changed, the show faced growing criticism for its portrayal of women and reliance on provocative jokes. Despite being a multimillionaire, Benny struggled with insecurities and had a deep fear of spending money. He wore his clothes until they were worn out and even glued his shoes back together when they came loose. Alfred Hill, later known as Benny Hill, was born in Southampton, England. On January 21, 1925, he was regarded as a class clown from an early age. By the age of 6, he was already making money by performing popular songs for beachgoers. He dropped out of school as a teenager and worked as a milkman before moving to London in search of a better future. There, he landed a job in a theater's props department. He got his big break when an actor was too drunk to perform, and the director, impressed by Hill's backstage impressions, gave him a chance on stage. In 1942, Benny was mobilized to join the British Army during World War II and was trained as a mechanic. He served in Normandy in September 1944, working as a mechanic, lorry driver, and searchlight operator. He later joined the Combined Services Entertainment Division, performing for soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. Inspired by comedians in British music halls, he decided to go into show business and adopted the name Benny after comedian Jack Benny. After World War II, Benny Hill restarted his career and found success with his first radio broadcast on Variety Bandbox on October 5, 1947. His television debut came in 1950. From 1962 to 1963, he starred in a sitcom titled Benny Hill, in which he played a different character in every episode. In 1964, he took on the role of Nick Bottom in a television adaptation of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Between 1964 and 1966, he hosted the Benny Hill Time program, featuring humorous sketches that parodied popular culture, such as James Bond and the Beatles. Hill appeared in 5 feature films: Who Done It? 1956, Light Up the Sky 1960, Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines 1965, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang 1968, and The Italian Job 1969, The Waiters 1969, and Eddie in August 1970. In 1974, a compilation film titled The Best of Benny Hill was released, showcasing clips from his early TV shows. Some of Hill's well-known audio releases include Gather in the Mushrooms and Transistor Radio, both 1961, Of Love 1963, and Ernie, the Fastest Milkman in the West, which became a Christmas #1 hit in 1971. For Ernie, Hill received an Ivor Novello Award in 1972. Benny Hill was admired by many celebrities. Johnny Carson, Adam Carolla, and Michael Jackson were among his fans, with Jackson personally applauding him during a tour in the 1970s. Hill also portrayed Scoodle in Genesis's music video For Anything She Does in 1987. In 2011, rapper Snoop Dogg expressed his admiration for Hill. Other admirers included film stars like Burt Reynolds, Michael Caine, and Mickey Rooney. Novelist Anthony Burgess once said Hill was a comic genius. Comparing him to legends like Charlie Chaplin and Stan Laurel, the Benny Hill Show was one of the most popular television programs during the early 1970s, attracting millions of viewers worldwide. The show featured a mix of memorable characters, physical comedy, and musical performances. It first aired on the BBC in 1955, with shorter comedic sketches and musical acts. Hill continued with the BBC until 1968, before moving to Thames Television. In 1969, the show was known for its slapstick, mime, parody, and innuendo-laden humor. At its peak in 1971, it had more than 21 million viewers. For his work in 1972, Hill was awarded the BAFTA Television Award for Best Writer and Best Entertainment Performance. The show became increasingly popular in the United States during the 1970s and remained in syndication until 1991. It was nominated for Emmy Awards in 1980 and 1981, and Hill won the Rose d'Or in 1984, despite its success. The show was cancelled by Thames Television in 1989 due to declining ratings and the high cost of production. About $555,000 per episode, equivalent to approximately $1.75 million in 2024. Even after its cancellation, the show's influence endured. In 2015, its theme song was voted #1 in the ITV special, The Sound of ITV, the nation's favorite theme tune. The Benny Hill show maintained a unique structure and comedic rhythm that kept audiences engaged for decades. The Benny Hill show featured Hill in a variety of short comedy sketches, often mixed with musical performances by contemporary artists. Hill frequently wore different costumes to play a wide range of characters. While the show drew criticism for sexism, Hill defended it by claiming that the women retained their dignity, whereas the men were the ones made to look ridiculous. The show relied on fast motion sequences, visual gags, mime, and parody, what Hill referred to as live animation. It often ended with a signature chase scene featuring Hill being pursued due to his antics, set to the iconic instrumental Yak de Sax, reminiscent of old Keystone Cop-style chases. Hill also performed patter songs and entertained audiences with fast-paced rhymes, often delivered in a single take. His inventive use of television cameras allowed him to create comedic illusions. In his 1976 parody, Murder on the Oregon Express, for example, he used editing tricks, angles, impersonations, to mimic 1970s detectives like Ironside and Kojak. Throughout his career, Hill parodied not only American celebrities and fictional characters such as W.C. Fields and Marlon Brando, but also American TV shows like The $6 Million Man, Starsky and Hutch, and The A-Team, which he spoofed as the B-Team. His impersonations extended to international stars like Nana Mouskouri and Miriam Makeba, as well as British figures like Shirley Bassey, Michael Caine, and newscasters Reginald Bosanquet, Alan Wicker, and Cliff Michael Moore. He mimicked pop show hosts such as Jimmy Savile and Tony Blackburn, musician Roger Whittaker, producer Tony Hatch, political figures like Lord Boothby and Dennis Healy, and fellow comedians such as Dave Allen. He even impersonated his former co-star Nicholas Parsons, and once portrayed both Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor in a spoof of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. The show's closing theme, Yak de Sax, written by James Q. Spider Rich and Boots Randolph, became instantly recognizable. The musical direction was handled by Ronnie Aldrich with vocal backing from the Ladybirds, who also appeared on screen. From 1969 to 1974, the saxophone solo in Aldrich's version was performed by Peter Hughes. This arrangement debuted with the show's first episode on Thames Television in 1969. Albert Elms briefly served as musical director for a few episodes in 1973 and 1974. The show often began with an enthusiastic announcement, typically delivered by Henry McGee, who introduced it with the words, "Yes, it's the Benny Hill Show." From 1975 onward, Hill was introduced as the lad himself. He commonly ended episodes with a salute and the words, "Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Until then, bye-bye." The main cast included Henry McGee, John Keith, Ken Said, Nicholas Parsons, Bob Todd, and Jackie Wright. The regular female cast, often labeled as sex-pot women, included Jenny Lee Wright, Subhan Bettine LeBeau, Leslie Goldie, Cherry Gillespie, and Diana Dors. Later, the Hills Angels dance troupe became part of the show, with Sue Upton and Louise English among the most recognizable members. Jane Lees appeared briefly during the early 1980s. Members of the Ladybirds, including Maggie Streeter, regularly appeared as backing singers. Character actresses such as Anna Dawson, Bella Emberg, Rita Webb, Helen Horton, and Patricia Hayes also featured in recurring roles. Despite his fame and wealth, Benny Hill never married or had children. Two women, including actress Annette Andre, publicly acknowledged turning down his romantic advances during the early 1960s, though no details were disclosed. In an interview with journalist Jane Dexter for the Daily Mirror, Hill spoke candidly about his difficulty in finding a partner, compared his situation to working in a chocolate factory, where too many choices made it hard to settle on one. He claimed to prefer women with practical sense and everyday jobs, such as office workers, factory employees, or shop assistants. The closest he came to marrying was with dancer Dora Steele, but the relationship ended when she said she wasn't ready for marriage. Throughout his life, Hill was the subject of rumors about his sexuality, which he firmly denied. He remained devoted to his work, often spending long hours perfecting scripts and rehearsing sketches. Known for his perfectionism, he maintained a modest lifestyle despite his financial success. He rented a double-room apartment in London for 26 years before moving to Fairways House in Teddington in 1986, where he continued to rent rather than buy. Hill described himself as a man of simple habits, shaped by his working-class upbringing. Therefore, Benny Hill opted for a life of simplicity. He bought cheap supermarket food, chose to walk instead of take taxis, and mended his clothes rather than replacing them. Though he held a driver's license, he never owned a car. He lived with the barest of necessities, and was, in many ways, an alchemist of simplicity, transforming a minimalist life into a surprisingly rich existence through his art. Despite being introverted, Hill thrived in the spotlight, blending humor with his love for music. He was a skilled saxophone player, and often infused music into his sketches, parodying popular songs to add depth and creativity to his performances. His commitment to his craft played a key role in the widespread popularity of The Benny Hill Show. But there was more to Benny Hill than just comedy, though not homosexual. Hill was known for performing in drag and creating memorable female characters, like Fanny Craddock, a toothy Moira Anderson, and all three Beverly sisters. His private life, however, was shrouded in mystery. One of his more puzzling traits was a deep fear of women, despite being fascinated by them. He was extremely shy and awkward around women, and often pointed to two specific childhood incidents as reasons for his lifelong bachelorhood. One where a girl on the beach wouldn't share her seashells, and another where a girl at a fair refused to let him have some of her candy floss. These seemingly trivial rejections left a lasting mark on him. He admitted to following these girls home but said he never spoke to them, insisting, "I wouldn't do that." Whether this behavior was innocent or unsettling remains open to interpretation. But it contributed to the emotional isolation that defined much of his adult life. Although he passed the 11+ exam at age 10, Hill had little interest in school and few friends. He left early and worked various jobs, including as a clerk at the Phoenix Wharf and Coal Company in Southampton. He later unloaded lorries for Woolworths, where he quietly admired a perfume counter girl named Jana, another unrequited affection. As a delivery man for Dorset Dairies, Hill created the character Ernie, fastest milkman in the West, imagining himself as a kind of modern-day wagon driver. The song based on this fantasy later won him an Ivor Novello Award in 1972. Years before that, Hill found comfort in the maternal care of women he worked with. In contrast to others in the entertainment industry like Robin Asquith, who was known for his hedonistic lifestyle, performing in local shows and variety concerts became Hill's way of being noticed. He began telling jokes for 5 shillings a night, believing that if he became a clown, everyone would love him. That, he thought, was the life for him. His parents didn't approve. His mother once told him to get a real job, suggesting he'd become a postman, a job with a pension. Nevertheless, he moved to London and endured tough conditions, including sleeping in rat-infested air raid shelters. He eventually found work as an assistant stage manager in East Ham, where his duties included painting backdrops and cleaning up after performers and their animals, including dogs and circus acts. He often had to fill in for performers who were too drunk to go on stage. During this period, he performed in blackface, a common but now rightly condemned practice of the time, and navigated a chaotic world filled with slackers, closeted performers, and conscientious objectors. Although he initially tried to avoid military service, Hill was eventually drafted and served in the British Army from 1942 to 1947. He particularly disliked his time in an anti-aircraft searchlight unit, scored poorly on aptitude tests compared to other conscripts. After being demobilized, Hill used his £52 gratuity to support himself while trying to launch a career in comedy. He performed calypsos on the radio, entertained at seaside shows in Weston Supermar, and told jokes at Masonic dinners. At one show, he began singing "You're adorable, B. I'm so beautiful," but was interrupted by a heckler, which rattled him and ended his performance. Often, he had to walk to his gigs in the rain, even going so far as to paint his gums red to make his teeth appear whiter. A significant turning point came when he began working as an assistant to comedian Reg Varney on tours to Margate and Sunderland. Hill tried his hand at a magic act, but it was poorly received. During this time, he also faced mockery from hecklers. Dancer Maren Resco, who worked with him, noticed that he had no success with women. When she asked about it, he once again told his familiar stories of childhood disappointment: the beach, the fairground, and the girl at the Woolworth's perfume counter. Research suggests last serious relationship occurred in 1954 with Dora Steele, a chorus girl at the Windmill Theatre in Soho. The relationship ended when she proposed marriage, and Hill refused. She left him, and he never got close to marrying again. He seemed to find a kind of strange comfort in sadness, cherishing the feeling of longing more than the idea of companionship. Benny Hill often spoke of a lost love that had never truly been his. In 1969, he reflected on love by saying that being truly in love could be miserable, so painful, it felt almost physical, like a weight on the chest. This deep emotional sensitivity stayed with him throughout his life. In the mid-1980s, Hill began experiencing health problems, particularly with his heart, which started to affect his performances. In February 1992, he suffered a mild heart attack. Doctors recommended bypass surgery, but he refused. Despite his declining health, he continued appearing on television, demonstrating his dedication to his craft. On April 20, 1992, Benny Hill passed away at age 68 in his flat in Teddington. His body was found days later after friends and colleagues had been unable to reach him. The cause of death was coronary thrombosis. He was buried in Hollybrook Cemetery near his hometown of Southampton. Shortly after his burial, rumors circulated that he had been buried with gold or valuables. Grave robbers broke into his coffin, but nothing was found. Even in death, Hill remained a subject of intrigue and myth. His legacy as a comedian and entertainer endures. The Benny Hill Show, with its mix of saucy songs, slapstick chases, and fast-paced sketches, entertained audiences in the UK and over 100 countries worldwide. Running for more than 20 years until its cancellation in 1989, the show made Hill internationally famous. However, despite its popularity, the show faced growing criticism for its portrayal of women. Often labeled sexist or objectifying, Hill defended his material, saying the women on his show were portrayed with dignity, while the male characters were made to look foolish. As cultural attitudes evolved, the show's risque humor drew increasing scrutiny. Accusations of outdated stereotypes and sexism led to pressure from critics and advertisers. Combined with rising production costs and falling ratings, this pressure contributed to the show's cancellation. Thames Television could no longer justify the expenses, and Hill's firm creative control left little room to adapt to changing tastes. His perfectionism and unwillingness to compromise often created tension with network executives. And despite the show's legacy, it was brought to an end. Hill and his fans were disappointed, but the decision stood. Still, many admire the show's unique comedic style, and Hill's talent remains widely recognized. The show had originally been envisioned as a serious series, but Hill soon discovered his strength in comedy and leaned fully into it, which led to its great success. One of his most beloved characters, Fred Scuttle, was a cheerful, bumbling figure in ridiculous situations, a tribute to Hill's own dentist. And an example of his ability to find comedy in everyday life, Hill was deeply involved in every aspect of the show. He wrote most of the sketches, composed much of the music, directed episodes, and even participated in the editing process. The show transitioned from black and white to color in 1969, after moving from the BBC to ITV's Thames Television. The first color episode, Superteach, aired on November 19, 1966, enhancing the visual aspects of Hill's comedy. Outside television, Hill also made his mark in film and music. His final TV special, Benny Hill's World Tour, New York, IRED in 1991, set in New York City, the special featured his trademark humor, slapstick, wordplay, and candid interactions with the public. It was his last appearance in America before his death, and a testament to his global appeal and tireless work ethic. Although he is gone, Benny Hill's influence continues. His comedy remains accessible and influential, and The Benny Hill Show still airs on various platforms. Channel 4 and That's TV have reintroduced his work to new generations. In 1998, Channel 4 honored Hill and its Heroes series. In 2002, critic DJ Taylor ranked him as the third greatest British comedian of the 20th century. A 2006 Channel 4 documentary titled, Is Benny Hill Still Funny?, revisited Hill's work in the context of modern comedy, comparing it to contemporary shows like Little Britain and The Catherine Tate Show, and demonstrating that his brand of humor still resonates across generations. In 2021, That's TV announced it would air The Benny Hill Show as part of its Christmas programming, marking the show's return to national TV after nearly 2 decades. With over 40 hours of content available, its TV aimed to introduce Hill's classic sketches to a broader audience. Today, The Benny Hill Show continues to engage audiences with its mix of slapstick, satire, and musical comedy, securing Benny Hill's place as one of the most distinctive and influential figures in television history.